A salary is the drug they give you when they want you to forget about your dreams.
Welcome to the Corporate Dropout Podcast. I'm your host, Alacia Citro. If you're sick of the corporate hamster wheel and looking to feel inspired and empowered to live a high vibe life as your own boss, you're in the right place. Dare to drop out in 3, 2, 1. Before we start the show, I want to tell you about the business I'm launching. Do you have a business idea, but you don't know where to start? Or maybe you've started your own business, but you know there are boxes you need to check when it comes to taxes, finance, legal protection, marketing, and more. Same. That's why I founded Thea Collective. Named for the Greek goddess of light, Thea was created to light the path for entrepreneurs. We have the community, courses, and connections that will help every entrepreneur quantum leap and avoid costly mistakes. Learn from experts across professions and get the blueprint you need for your business. Text BIZ, that's B-I-Z, to 949-577-8709 or head to thea-collective.com to learn more. Hello, friends. Today, I'm interviewing my friend, Meghan Hedley, an entrepreneur, artist, and healer. Meghan is a multi-passionate creative living in her dream Adobe home on a high desert horse rescue ranch in New Mexico. She is a professional artist showing work mostly in Los Angeles, Oregon, and New Mexico. She is a face reader and Chinese medicine-informed life and business coach, a craniosacral therapist with a practice in Santa Fe, an online sales aficionada, a network marketing mentor, a future Chinese medicine doc, an ex-college professor, and the owner of Red Earth Wellness Way, a true wearer of many hats and a lover of entrepreneurship. Meghan, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. We went to high school together and were reconnected through our friend Lauren Kehoe. So shout out to Lauren this last year. And oh my gosh, am I glad that she put us back in touch.
Me too. Yeah, that was a little over a year ago that she mentioned we might like each other. And it seems like we've been on a little bit of a similar path in some ways. So that's awesome.
Yeah, to say the least. So I have to say, and I'm sure the listeners would agree, your bio is one of the more interesting ones. I have to count the commas in there as I was rattling off all the things that you do. And so I would love to start this with your background. So take us through your professional journey and how did you come to a place where you became comfortable coloring outside the lines?
Oh, I like that. Yes. So even though there's a lot of different titles there, all of them ultimately touch in many ways on creativity and wellness. So they're just getting at it in different ways. And, since I was a little girl, so we'll just go back to that. I was an artist. I was already creating from an early age. I'm so thankful that my parents let me they just encouraged my passion. They encouraged my creativity without stopping it. My dad is a musician, and I think that, so my dad actually went into entrepreneurship. He ran a business his whole life with his family. And while it was amazing and it provided for him, he also really missed his passions. And so for him, it was so important that my sister and I completely pursued our passions. And by my sister and I mean, we have quite a blended family. So now there's a lot of sisters and a brother there too. But I think that was really pivotal in first watching my dad be a business owner, and also my stepdad, and all around my family are entrepreneurs. And having that as an example in retrospect was incredibly helpful when I finally later on decided to be a business owner. And then second, I really don't take for granted how supportive they were. So with that, I knew from an early age that art was important to me. Also from a very early age as a little kid, I was a little bit of a weird kind of spiritual kid. I just was really into deep stuff and I would say dark things, but not like, that sounds kind of funny, not like black magic, just in that spiritual sense of being very aware of the dark and the light. And with that, I had mental health challenges as well from an early age. So I think that the combination of being interested in art, being interested in healing, it was just there all along. When I went to high school, actually, my high school sweetheart at the time was his mom was one of the main kind of inventors of art therapy. And so at age 15, was so young when you think about being in a relationship at that age. But at age 15, I was already like, oh my gosh, art therapy, that's it. This is where these things unite. So I carried that, went to a little liberal arts school up in Oregon, grew up in California, but I went up to Oregon, and the first week of college, I was in art, but I didn't know it would be my major. I thought I would do art and psychology for art therapy. Two things happened the first week of college. One was I really didn't like my psychology teacher. And when you think about the power of one, this really pivoted that part of my path very quickly, because I just was like, oh, I liked the subject matter, but I did not like the professor. But I was sitting in the art office, and the art chair, Mark Terry, ode to him if he ever listens to this, said, why don't you be an art major? And it was just that fast. I just, 100%, I'll commit to art. Later that year, I went into philosophy. So I double degreed in art and philosophy. And what I found was the study of philosophy helped me kind of channel that interest in healing in a different way, to where it's a bit of a long story, but this took me on a big journey over the world, to East Africa, to Northern Ireland, where I was researching art and healing at this global level that I was quite unprepared for, but somehow jumped in, got a research scholarship, and was living in Northern Ireland by myself when I think I was 21 years old for a summer, doing research, meeting all these global leaders. And I didn't even know what I was doing, but it informed my entire life. So now I'm 33. And in a lot of ways, that initial passion is just still there, manifesting in so many ways. So I can continue the story, but I don't know if you had any questions at this point before I get up to the present.
I just think I want to maybe make like a comment, and just as an observer of this, I think it's incredible that you had these people in your life, be it your family, who were set up as entrepreneurs and encouraged you from that. What are the odds that your high school sweetheart's mom played any kind of positive role? Wish I could say the same about my high school sweetheart's mom. Hopefully she never listens to this, but if she does, you kind of scarred me. I wish I had that. I mean, it's just amazing that these different people came into your life. Even, like the psychology teacher not being a great fit. Like, think of if it had, you probably wouldn't have been traveling the world the way you did studying philosophy, right? Like, it's just kind of incredible looking back as you tell the story, how all these people crossed your path for better or worse to get you where you are right now. Exactly.
And that was a perfect pivot, because that reminds me, just following on this power of one thing, I didn't know that was the way I was going to go, but it always reminds me of it when I think of the story. So when I was in art graduate school, so I did my MFA in painting and installations up at Washington State University. When I was there, I was still really interested in healing, and I just wasn't sure how it would look. I knew at that point it wasn't going to be art therapy, but everything I did with art for myself was a therapy, but it was still figuring out how is this going to work with other people. And I had two voices. One was a wonderful professor friend of mine, but I said, oh, I'm really interested in psychology still. And she said, oh, you could never handle it. It would be too sad. And it was just one conversation, but it isn't that I agreed with her, but it did, influence me in thinking, oh, maybe she's right. Maybe I should protect myself or something. Then it was my last semester in my graduate program, getting ready for my big show. And I was having I would say, kind of panic attack central, and anxiety, depression, everything was just piling on really heavy. And this often happens to me in school, I will say. I tend to seek out school, and I'm really cool, cruising along until I'm not, and then I crash. And so this happened back then in 2013, but somehow we had this wonderful insurance as artists, art graduate students, and all of my art friends were getting acupuncture. And I was terrified of needles, but I jumped in kind of out of desperation. And within a week, so much changed. I had my first treatment. All of these things started lifting, healing. And I was able to actually go twice a week for the rest of the semester just based on our insurance, which was very helpful. I also started doing mindfulness at the same time. So it's interesting how now as an entrepreneur, mindset and hypnosis and these things, I saw like the seeds were planted way back then. So on one hand, that was incredible. The healing part started showing up again. And I said to my practitioner at the time, maybe I want to do acupuncture. Maybe I want to be in Chinese medicine. And she said, it's too much science. You probably wouldn't like it. It was another one of those comments that, and I go, and I think now, like current me would not be derailed by those conversations, but younger me was very influenced. So I didn't do it. And I went, did another trip to Ireland, did an artist residency, and continued with this art and philosophy thing, was thinking about going into a PhD. But I went back. This was on the border of Washington and Idaho. I love it up there. It's beautiful. So I stayed there for 2 years, worked at a food co-op, and was making barely any money. And we can talk about finances here and why it's so important to me to make more money now. But living on a dime, but I had started to balance out my mental health, and that was really important. And had another bit of a breakdown, I would say about 2 years later. Again, I went to a new acupuncturist. I first have to give credit to my grandma. My grandma said, Megan, I think you should be an acupuncturist. And I was like, interesting. Okay, thanks, Grandma. I went to a new acupuncturist on my second treatment. I said, I'm thinking of finally doing this. And she said, you would be amazing. And that's all I needed to hear. And it set me on this path of finally finding that healing avenue. And it's just, I think of like how it is now. I know you and I are both in the coaching space and the network marketing space and just all of entrepreneurship. And it's so important to me, even on sales calls now, to think of those things I say and be very aware. If I say something like one positive comment or one, not that you can't have tough love sometimes, but comments can really shift a person. So that kind of brings it back. And, then there's more. Then there's like a chapter 3 there.
Well, just, again, reiterating what you said, the power of words. When we grow up, we hear that stupid thing, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me. I actually think that words hurt more and have a much longer lasting impact than sticks and stones and broken bones. So it's like, I feel like, listening to this story that you're telling too, this person's saying, oh, you wouldn't like it because it's too much science. Why wasn't that offered instead? Like, well, let's talk about that. If you go this route, there's going to be a lot of science. Like, how do you feel about that? Instead of just making this judgment that then derailed you. But then, on the other hand, you have, your grandma saying you should do this. And then you basically were given permission and having that life spoken into you that you could do it. And that's all you needed to hear. I feel like sometimes people need to hear like, you got it, you can do it, and how powerful that is. But people don't, I think sometimes we discount the magnitude of us speaking affirmation into others. Absolutely.
And I will say, caveat, sticks and stones, broken bones did also affect my life, because in high school, I was going to be a professional soccer player. This was my lifelong goal. It was on the El Toro soccer field that I got a knee injury that also pivoted my whole life because, so it's very interesting because another part of me, my aunt is an Olympian. And so since I was a little kid, I thought I'm going to be an Olympian. So it's very interesting, when you see, I think about this sometimes, and it's a lot with like, what we do, I think, as entrepreneurs with visioning and what you really see for yourself manifesting. I truly felt I would be. It's interesting to have things actually not come to fruition that you feel very powerfully will.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it didn't plant some really important seed. And I think that some things just get you further on the path. And maybe for me, it was the path of like dreaming big, in which I love dreaming big. Yeah. And I'm no longer on the path of soccer, unfortunately. I miss it. But so just saying both do, but I would probably agree with you that words ultimately are more powerful, depending on the situation.
I have kind of a random follow-up question to this, and I'm just thinking about it because, we go way back, and I'm curious, that injury, I mean, you come from a very athletic family. You said your aunt was an Olympian. Your sister was one of the most gifted swimmers that I have ever met. I mean, she was phenomenal. So yeah, shout out to Katie if she's listening.
Go Katie.
Was it hard when you had that injury and you have all these other people in the family that are so athletic and that was taken away? Like what did that do from like a mental and emotional standpoint?
It probably, like I said, I think I battled elements of depression growing up, especially my parents divorced, and just the wonderful story there is, while it was challenging, we could have a whole podcast on just what that did to me. They were all very loving and everything is really great now. And that took me on a whole nother path of complexity. But again, I would say I have 4 parents and they're all quite loving. And that's one thing I was never void of, was love. And I'm very grateful for that. But I did have another probably wave of depression in the beginning there. But it's interesting. Maybe you connected some dots for me. At the time, like I said, I was a spiritual little kid. And so I jumped very into my church. I started singing in the band, and I just took it as a sign to go all into that. And I think it's interesting because I've done that a few other times, where I've had these kind of big sudden stops, big failures. It isn't that I didn't try to fight through my injury, but it did set me back. And when you only have 4 years in high school, it pushed me back just far enough that I just couldn't get there quick enough to do that. So then I decided, I don't want to play sports in college and I'm going to focus on some other things. But you're right. It was hard. And even to this day, I am still seeking and kind of looking for just the right physical, what's it called? Like a trainer or something. Because I so miss being an athlete. And kind of since that moment, I've struggled to find what is athletic for me. But yeah, it's interesting identifying. I did play club soccer through the rest of high school, and that was amazing. And I have some amazing friends through that. But you're right. This was a setback and challenging, but I think it instilled in me from an early age, I'm very competitive and I want to be the best. So that kind of shifted into art. Like, while I absolutely supporting everyone, and I love that, and I'm not trying to compete with people on one level, on another level, I want to be the best. And that drive has kept me pursuing my dreams. So there's a healthy level of that, and then probably a ego level of that, but we'll get to that maybe.
Well, and I think the moral of that too is, what's the quote? Rejection is redirection. It's like if a door closes, it's because another one is opening, and you've found the doors that have opened. I want to get into the mental health stuff too later, but before we do that, I want to kind of stay on this this vein of like doors closing and like failing forward, so to speak. Yes. So I want you to tell the story about med school and how failing created opportunity. Will you share with us what happened?
Perfect. Another beautiful segue. So yes, so I was in a Chinese medical program in Portland, Oregon for 4 years. And, what's interesting is that school, you can do it in 3 years or you can do it in 5 years. Most people did it in 3. Jumping into that program in many ways was amazing. Like, I have no regrets. It's finally where I started to believe in myself as someone who could be a healer and these types of things. It also seemed to stir back my creativity, and I started having a lot of art opportunity. And so that started to become, again, kind of tap into this lifelong battle, you could say, I guess, but struggling to synthesize the art and healing parts of myself. While deep inside, I know they are so connected, but to share it with the world is like my lifelong process. So anyway, I'm not complaining. I had so many art doors open while I was in that program, but it kind of slowed me down. And so eventually I changed into the 5-year program so that I can continue having time for art. I did a little bit of art professorship during that time as well. And it was a lot. I was wearing a lot of hats. And in some ways it made me so alive. In other ways, it was probably a bit much. But anyway, I finally get around to take what's called the clinic entrance exam. And over time, I really developed test anxiety. I didn't have that in high school. In high school, I just did it. In high school and undergrad, I think I would take, how many classes? 6 or 7 classes and always be fine. But as I went through life, it became like I needed to lessen the load. So long story short, I had to take a test to get into clinic. And it's 3 parts. I didn't pass it the first time. None of the 3 parts. Then took it again and passed 1 of the 3 parts, but not the other 2. Then the only time I could take it was a couple months later, so it kind of already slowed me down, and I didn't pass. But what did happen in that not passing time was I started to release the attachment I had to the program. And I traveled to New Zealand, actually, because I kind of had this extra time off. I found the network marketing company that lit up a little fire in me about online entrepreneurship that now has many different facets for my life. But it was a very important moment to recognize that could be a way, like truly significant. I remember it shifted my whole heart almost, knowing that there was this other way. And so then when I didn't pass the test for the 3rd time, I could have stayed on, but I wouldn't have been able to take the test again for another 5 months. And I was just ready to get on with my life. So it was very interesting. I got the email that I didn't pass by just a couple points. It's like one of those just a couple points. And I felt ready in every other way. I'd already needled people and done all the things you do in acupuncture school. I just couldn't get a Western medical question right, And so all that to say, I was driving home from Oregon to California and started listening to Law of Attraction, actually, right then. It was the first time in my life. And it was clear as day to just walk away. And I had $300 in my bank. I needed to come up with about $10,000, just to get through the next 2 months. And I just said, all right, here I am. And that was but I felt grief. Yes, I cried a bit, but I felt so free. I just felt so free. It was finally time to believe in myself as an art and a healer in a different way, as an artist and a healer. And I think, within that week it was Thanksgiving, and I just remember feeling so happy. It shifted a lot of things for me, even though it was terrifying, but the fear didn't matter. I just was free. And I got a couple big commissions within a week that before I knew it, I had the money I needed. And it was
wow.
It just was a sign that I was in the right place, letting go. And I felt very empowered in a way I never had before, which also helped majorly shift my mental health. I don't think I had ever felt so well, truly.
Wow. Okay, wait. Tell us about manifesting the 10,000. What was the exact dollar amount of the commissions?
Well, commissions were not so much. I had received also. So what I did actually was, this is my first real exercise in money manifesting. Now, I will say a year before that, I started reading Think and Grow Rich. So that was already getting things going. And
so the seeds were planted.
The seeds are going. I also got an art agent, a good friend. I don't know if you know Billy Gross. Thank you, Billy.
Oh yeah. I remember Billy from elementary school. We're shouting Billy. Out lots of the homies.
I know. Go El Toro. So Billy had said, read Think and Grow Rich. And this is when I started selling more art overall. So things started shifting. Let me even back up. Before I had failed my test and this, I remember when I first started working with Billy, he had, one thing about being in the academic art world, I would say it's not quite like the corporate world, but there's a certain set of rules, a certain set of beliefs that go on there. And many people in my life did not believe it was possible to make a living as an artist. You had to teach, you had to do something else, right? And Billy was the first person that said, yeah, you can. Really simple. Yes, you can. And then I read Think and Grow Rich and I go, oh my gosh, I can. So I love the academic art world, truly. I will always hold it very closely to my heart. But that's when I started identifying more as an entrepreneur. There's something bigger for me and the word fits me better. So anyway, all this to say, when I didn't pass the test, I had just started every day writing down 10,000 by January 1st, 10,000 by January 1st. So yeah, it was between some small art sales, a gift that I got, and between 2 or 3 commissions. I don't remember the exact dollar amount. I have to look. But yeah, it was like exactly 10,000. It was crazy. Exactly.
That's what I was curious about, because I've heard so many stories of where people manifest like exactly the amount that they write down or have in their mind. I just started working with a VA agency, and he emailed me. I think it's like an automated thing that goes out when you sign, and it's like, here's a blank check. I want you to print it out. I want you to date it 1 year from today. What's the amount of money that you're going to have in the bank a year from today? And I put $1,033,300. So we'll see if next December 5th, if that comes true, but I'll keep you all posted. I've read and heard so many stories like that.
I believe it.
I think it's amazing.
Yeah. And it's interesting because as now, you go through now I have more doors that have opened because of those decisions. Like things just kept opening, which then made me even more multi-passionate, which in some ways I feel slowed down some of my money goals because it just has taken me a while to get it all to integrate. And that's okay. Yeah. Like I accept the journey. But back then I was like as brave as I did. I was so brave. And I love to channel that original entrepreneur energy because as you get into the space, you start comparing, you start seeing other people hitting blah, 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 and this and that and this and that. When you're just brand new, it's just open, expansive. Yeah. And so that's an interesting thing we can chat about. But so as I kept going, it took a few different facets. I started doing some business trainings on art business, online business. I joined my network marketing company, which was pivotal in just having team calls and being surrounded by other people creating their freedom and dream lives. Yeah. And it wasn't even about the success that I had with my network marketing company. It was all about the mindset, the healing. That stuff needed to happen first, actually, for me. And so then I just remember, this just popped into my head, being afraid of sales for so long. But in this whole transition, sales became so exciting to me to a point that this summer I got hired by one of the top people in my network marketing company to do his sales calls for a different mentorship program. And it's just wild because I was so afraid of sales. And so if anything, entrepreneurship is the surest path to facing your fears and sometimes walking right into the thing that you were most afraid of and having it work out,
Well said. And, for anyone listening that's been contemplating jumping into network marketing, or maybe you're in it now, but like you're not really doing much with it, I invite you to just go like all in, because maybe that's not going to be like the end all be all, but I can guarantee it will be the vehicle to finding out what fires you up and what you're really good at and getting over the crap between your ears. Right. And also like the sales thing is so interesting. Yeah. So many people have such a stigma around sales, and it's like, are there people that are slimy about it? 1,000%. But like people can spot that. And like, if that's not you, it's never going to be you. Like sales is solving a problem, and you're selling all day, every day. Like when you convince your partner where you want to go to dinner, like that's selling, like we're all selling every day in every way. So I just had to shout that out as
I love that. Yeah.
An ex-professional salesperson.
And network marketing for sure is a bad word to a lot of the people. And I like to just say it out loud because I don't think it's a bad word, and it has been for me interesting. And this is where the shift also happened, was like healing is still important to me. I knew I also wanted to coach. I knew I also wanted to work with my training in Chinese medicine, which includes face reading and all these things. And I knew, so it's been, again, like you said, it's been the vehicle. I will keep my company for probably to the end of time. And it's helped me believe in myself that I can now do these other things. If that's kind of what you were saying. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I think for the entrepreneur who hasn't done it before, or maybe has some doubt, it's the best way for very little to no risk to figure out if this is something that you like, and then to grow and expand from there. Okay. So
for sure.
Your longer bio includes a paragraph, which I'm going to read, and then I want to hear more about.
Let's see.
Okay.
Mystery.
So, all right. So you said, I traveled the world at an early age in a quest to understand art and healing. And 2 years ago, my partner Chris and I moved to New Mexico after a strong calling, beginning with a sighting of wild horses in central Washington. And moving to New Mexico, the land of enchantment, has not disappointed. I have found great empowerment in living amidst this stunning landscape, diving deeper into my own healing and work with others' healing and empowerment journeys while believing in my dreams and working steadfastly on bringing my visions to fruition. Okay, that is truly living the dream. So tell us more. How did you uproot your life and relocate?
Sure. So this was, I would say, when I failed the test was November 2019. Radical life change, then became full-time entrepreneur, all these things. That was when my partner and I both had felt drawn to New Mexico kind of separately for a long time. And then it was like, okay, we thought we'd be in Portland for another year because of my program. And he was already a Chinese medicine doctor, so he was just kind of waiting for me to finish. And then, but it was like, oh, we're free. Okay, let's make this happen. There's a whole nother story about New Mexico drawing me in, and all of it really does tie into manifestation and visioning. But I had always been drawn to Taos. Sorry, I mean for a couple of years, I'd been told that I would like Taos, New Mexico. When I was in the middle of my test failing, and I like to say, like, just openly, you already mentioned it. I love embracing that it was a failure because, like you said, it's redirection that probably saved my whole life.
So you failed forward, right? Like, is it really
Exactly.
failure if you use it to pivot and do something better,
Yeah. Yeah. And it just gives you that feeling of, especially if it's something you're so committed to that just stops. It's like, whoa, it's me and the world, and I'm supported. And you can really tune into that energy. So interestingly, part of that was going to Taos. I was in the middle of the second and third fail, and I had so badly wanted to go to Taos. I was like, again, going through I was both probably having an awakening, but also mental health challenges all at once. And by the way, the word mental health is like an interesting pair of words that I probably would talk about a bit differently through my Chinese medicine language, but it's just the way to kind of capture the whole story.
Curiosity, how would you talk about it through Chinese medicine language? Let's sidebar on that real quick.
Oh, sure. Well, this even goes into words. I think what I love about Chinese medicine is that you can approach, like, everyone is unique. Every different situation is unique. You see the root of things, and there's always a way forward. And sometimes when you get blocked into a certain terminology with mental health, it becomes, like you said, or not like you said, but just talking about the power of words, it becomes, I am a depressed person, or I am a blah, blah, blah. And while there's no harm, sometimes identifying what you may be struggling with is so helpful. In another way, it's nice to loosen the grip on these words. And I remember I had a Chinese medicine practitioner who's like now my face reading mentor and just true life mentor. He, one time I said, I think I'm bipolar. I feel bipolar sometimes. And he said, or you're just an artist, and it wasn't like a condescending thing. It was just you're just feeling life. And so, yeah, it's interesting. That could be a whole episode on wording.
We'll have you back anytime.
Yeah, there we go. But yeah, so anyway, I was going through something and I drove to Taos on a whim from Portland. I had 5 days. And it was a long journey. It's a 3-day journey both ways. So I just started driving, and I was spent less than 24 hours in Taos. And my whole heart exploded. Like, they say Taos is one of those places. It's like Sedona. And it either pulls you in or pushes you away. This is what they say. So it pulled me in. And for the next year, it was like a little whisper, like, this place is going to carry you through. I sold a painting called Taos right when I got back. Things just started unfolding, and this is how all this manifestation started, and law of attraction and blah, blah, blah. And so when it was time to leave Portland, it was very clear that we both needed to follow that. And so it was pretty easy. For us, it was in the heart of the pandemic, but both of us made money separately. Chris was still treating patients, and he had been able to save, and I was becoming the little entrepreneur that I am. And it was not so hard to move. It just fit in, and we uprooted. I thought we were going to live in Taos. While we were visiting New Mexico in July to figure out where we wanted to live. We were standing at this beautiful red rock out where we live. I just gave away the punchline. And Chris said, wouldn't it be nice to live out here? And I said, yeah, I think so. And that night I got back to my Airbnb. I found a place on Zillow within a mile of where we said that. And it was this horse ranch. And so all these things, just like one clear sign after another. So we live outside of Santa Fe and on a horse ranch in the country. And it's like just such a dream to live out here. It's very beautiful. Yeah.
So sidebar question that I wanted to ask you too, and you kind of gave this away when you said it's like Sedona. The energy is just fundamentally different there, right?
It really is. Like, I think I like to say New Mexico is like this subtle, it's subtle. There are beautiful, like big, beautiful places that you can see too, but the energy, you have to tune in to pick up on it. And like, it has a lot of the power of Utah, the Reds, and the power of Sedona, but it's not always as like in your face. But it's something else out here. You know, and Taos is like the place that truly kind of mostly mimics that, but Santa Fe has it too. They say Santa Fe has like a bed of rose quartz beneath it, and you know, all these things. I could be a little bit wrong. Sorry to any Santa Fe locals, but I heard that once. And yeah, it's got something wonderful. So
I'm going to have to fact check that. I'm obsessed with rose quartz. I
thought you might be. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's like the thing I'm drawn to. I have so many rose quartz crystals. In fact, I was just meditating with one before this episode. And for those of you who don't know, it's like heart chakra, self-love, compassion. Yeah. So probably a pretty good place to be if you are in need of some healing.
It is. And maybe you were going to ask this, but yes, we just, 2 months ago, another one of those clear signs, another long story, but we just opened up our wellness clinic right in the heart of Santa Fe. It's like right near the plaza. And so I practice cranial sacral therapy and Chris does Chinese medicine. And we have our hydration station and all these little things. But it's really, we thought we would just do it out here on the horse ranch because it's powerful out here. But then we found this space that just showed up. And now I'm doing that, which is interesting because I am such an advocate of online entrepreneurship and took this pivot. And that's been a funny thing to go through because I'm doing both, you know, but yeah, there's a lot there.
So I want to touch a little bit too on your mission that you shared with me before the show. And your mission being to guide others towards their authentic, full aliveness through a mix of creative and healing modalities so that they too may step into their unique dreams, passions, and holistic healing. So tell us a little bit more about that. Like, what worked for you stepping into your full authentic expression? And then what are you seeing? I know everyone is different, but like, what are you seeing working with clients so that they can really live their truth?
Yeah, that's a good one. So this has been a lifelong thing to find the right wording of what my mission is. But that was a decent summary. I think I put that on my website, which is why it was already written. And
it's beautiful. I love it.
Thank you.
You were definitely inspired when you wrote it. You can tell, like, even reading it, there's a really good energy to it.
Good. I'm so glad. Yeah. So I think what's happening right now for me, this is kind of a roundabout way of asking or answering, is that things are finally synchronizing. All these things I care about and finally working past the shoulds and even in network marketing or in coaching, they both have like a load of this is how it should look. This is how, or only focus on one thing or blah, 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 blah. And it's taken me quite a bit of time to just say, I am multi-passionate and it's going to look how it looks. And so on one hand, I really want to help people do that. It doesn't mean I only work with multi-passionate people. Actually, I have a thing about niching. Niching is very hard for me because I'm multi-passionate. So it's
I feel you. It's so hard.
Yeah. And I think you will find one coach after another say, this is what you need to do. But I found, here's a good way to answer this. I found a hypnotherapy coach that is incredible. Her name is Stepanka, and I can attach her info too, if you'd like. She's really great. And she basically freed me from feeling like I had to fit into that box. And I realized I'm a manifester in human design and I can create something this fast and half the people will not understand it. More than half the people, actually, I think like 90% of people will not understand how I do all this. And it doesn't mean it doesn't take a lot of balancing, but I'm very alive when I'm doing art and in-person healing and online healing. So it's very important for me to help people accept themselves. It's very simply said, but that is important because this is a way to ignite some pretty big healing for yourself. And I guess back to like the client question, I can tell you a little bit about face reading because that's one of the main ways I'm doing it now. And face reading.
Tell us, because you're reading my face on Thursday, which I cannot wait for.
I'm excited.
Yeah, tell us about this because I don't know what to expect either.
Well, we'll see. It'll be an open thing, but basically face reading, my mentor that I've mentioned before, while he was treating me with acupuncture and had some pretty profound healing that way through some longstanding trauma, he would notice a few things about my face. And he might say one or two comments, acupuncture session, and that comment would dramatically shift something like, whoa. You know, for example, he said an aspect of my forehead shows that it's very important for me to be connected to what my ancestors did for work. Not everyone is going to have that significance, but for me, it was very important. So you just get these different little tidbits about that, about yourself. And you could spend an entire session looking at someone's ear. Like the face has so many things to see. And the main thing that I like to do is help people build compassion for themselves on one very aesthetic level. You know, we all have our things that we don't necessarily like, or wrinkles, or these types of things. And when you can start seeing that that is part of who you are in a very powerful way, or maybe this line shows this strength in you, or this line tells this story, and it tells a pretty specific story when you start understanding the face. It's very, it's like very profound for me to see people have that aha moment of, wow, look at like this, my eyebrow says this, and and it's just about self-understanding. It's about self-compassion, and that can lead to a lot of things. You know, I love working with entrepreneurs because I understand that life, but I also work with other types that are just looking to better understand themselves. And does that answer a little bit? I mean, there's so much I can say about it, but there are a lot of ways to look at the face.
You know,
another episode.
Yeah, right. Well, okay. So the thing that I'm thinking of as you're talking about this, I think it's like the first page in Think and Grow Rich. And it's something about like, there's no greater mastery than the mastery of oneself. You know, and I think like, you know, you talk about human design a little bit, which I recently ordered my blueprint from Erin Claire Jones, who that would be a great person to interview on here too. But, you know, I think sometimes people are like, why are you so obsessed with like learning all these different parts of you? But it really starts to make things click and sort of guide you as to what your authentic expression is. And for me, it's almost been permission and like an explanation of like, no, like that's that's why I'm that way. Like it's really just helped me connect the dots and have more self-love.
Do you feel that like you just summed it up? Yes, you just summed it up. And I think so many people, especially in building their own businesses, are people that tend to just dive into one of these things after another. And a lot of my clients will say, oh, wow, that is confirmation and affirmation of what, you know, it's like, and it's just one observation that I make through my training that they go, okay, I can be more of me. You know what I mean? And there's also the other side. You can see things like, oh, in the ear, for example, you can see, hey, did a trauma happen at this age or something? And you start looking like a fortune teller because people go, yes, by the way, at age 4, I moved across the country and it was kind of traumatic, you know, and there's a notch on the ear that says that. And so it's kind of cool to be able to be a little bit psychic without officially being psychic, but help people understand what their health journey will look like in the future too. You can kind of see someone's future or how to better build practices in to strengthen a part of themselves that might be less strong. But I always focus on the strengths because I believe in that with unless we do a deeper dive. I have other packages, longer packages where you can take more time with it. But in the single sessions, I tend to keep it quite positive and about understanding yourself as much as you can in an hour and a half.
I better book more then, because I want all of it. So,
perfect. Yeah, we'll talk.
So the final thing I wanted to talk to you about, we kind of touched on this, a little bit throughout the interview, but I want to talk, quote unquote, mental health. And I know that you living your truth and being in your full expression has improved your mental health tremendously. There's a couple things I want to ask you here. One is, you've shared a little bit of what you were going through before living your truth. So I'm curious, like, if there were anything, like any specific, like tangibles that really helped you heal. And, for the person listening that's like just going through it right now, like what advice would you offer to them?
Probably the first thing was that I've always asked for help. If I think about it, in high school, there were some very rough times that, just to be frank, didn't think I'd make it out alive, but I always asked for help. I went to a therapist. It wasn't the best therapist, but there was she was probably fine. She just wasn't, how it takes. Shopping around for therapists is another thing that's important. But I then went to another therapist in college. I was always vocal about my things with my professors, just in a way that was truthful, authentic. So that openness has helped me so much through life. Most people that I know in any close way have seen me bawl my eyes out, so it's just something that I'm grateful that I have this open heart. And I think it's also what's helped me heal the most, because asking for help was not something I was afraid of. I went into big debt looking for help, like I didn't want to ask my parents for any money. But I would always pay. That's another thing I would suggest, is not to go into debt necessarily. Do what you feel comfortable with on money, but don't always go with the insurance person. Like, find the person that fits. And that has been for coaches. That's been for, sometimes I have found someone on insurance. Like, basically, if my insurance is what got me into acupuncture in grad school. But when you make those investments in yourself, whether it's like these days, it's been, in the past, it was therapy. Then it was acupuncture. So when I connected the mind-body part is when a really big level of healing happened. So that can happen through acupuncture, through cranial psychotherapy, through hypnosis, if you can't do something in person, through massage. So somehow connecting the mind-body is going to be, this is what I've devoted my life to, my debt to, is learning this so I can offer this to other people. Ask for help is the biggest thing, because it's very important to know that there is someone walking alongside you. And then you have moments where you don't need anyone. I haven't had a therapist for quite some time. Now I kind of jump between different practitioners here and there. But there was a time where it was very important to have a practitioner or two every week and just work through the patterns and find a person who, I have to say, and some of the stuff that I would not share, I'm very open, but not everyone's going to want to hear some of the things I had been through. I had a practitioner who's my current, another power of one moment, my face reading mentor. I keep referencing him. C.T. Holman is his name. And I went to him with some stuff that I was scared to tell most people. And he didn't have a problem with it. He just said, okay, let's get you on the table and we'll work with you. And then he asked me to be his mentee. And that was huge because it was a person that knew my darkest stuff and also saw my potential. And there was no problem. It was like, you can work with my patients with me. And that trust in me, knowing some of the stuff that there's a lot of shame around and these types of things, has also impacted how I want to coach and work with people. Is like, you can always make it out of the darkest times. Yes. Even if you're in them for quite some time, and just, it's okay. It's okay that you're in them. For the people that are still in them, it's okay. There's always a way out.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And I think too, it's like, we live in this time of social media and the highlight reel. And I don't think enough people are honest about their struggles and their shadow. We all have a shadow, right? Yeah. But it's it's that contrast and that polarity of, being in the pit, of having the darkness that allows you to appreciate the peaks and the light. So I think, embracing all those parts of you, knowing that it's just going to make the good times that much better because you have that basis of comparison and the frame of reference. And then to your point, being open and not being afraid to share it because there's someone else who thinks that you have it all together and that your life is perfect. And if you have that openness and share your struggles, it's going to really empower somebody else. I'm so passionate about that too. So I thank you for sharing your story.
Of course. Yes, I have been an open book since day one about that stuff. So I feel like it's part of my mission to just keep being that, because it's the same, and that's maybe one final caveat there is with social media, whether the person listening is building an online business or just running a business or anything, even if in sharing your truth, you lose 80 people or 100 people or people don't care, or they go, oh, I didn't want to hear that. There is always one person that benefits from hearing from it. And I have been reminded of that again and again. And it's worth it. It's worth it for that one person. And
it's okay to thin the herd to find your people, right? Like pruning is a part of life. You're not ice cream. Not everyone's going to like you. I guess lactose intolerant people don't like ice cream. So maybe that would be the exception there. But it's okay to not be everything to everybody, So the final thing I wanted to ask you, tell us about, you've shared a little bit about the healing modalities that you offer, but talk to us a little bit more about them. And then how can people work with you, even if they're not local to Santa Fe? Like I'm doing a face reading over Zoom with you in 2 days. So that's one example. But how can people work with you? And then anything else that you want to plug?
Perfect. And I've done pretty good with all my words, but thank you. I'm a talker. Okay. So we have, like I said, my partner and I just opened up this in-person clinic, and I'm so excited about it. I really didn't think this was going to happen for me for another 3 years, because one thing I also didn't mention is I'm also in another Chinese medicine program now. The failure of that first program led me to a much more aligned program that I do in Florida, and it's module-based, and I can still live out in New Mexico. But it's very cool that I found a way that I can still work with people hands-on in the meantime. So I practice cranial sacral therapy. Cranial sacral therapy is just that. It's the cranium, the head, and the sacrum down around your low back. And you do these very gentle holds that help realign the body, to put it very simply. But it can be quite profound. It's very gentle. And then
it kind of helps to disperse some of the fluid around the spine or something, right? Not to get all techie on this, but how does that work?
Can be, so I have to say, before I got very into Chinese medicine, I probably thought all this stuff was super woo-woo. And it can be very woo-woo, but there's also a very real scientific side to it. And there's both extremes, you can go, but basically simply said, yes. So there's this fluid. The biggest thing I try to say is it's very good for trauma healing. It's very good for physical and emotional trauma. One reason, because you don't necessarily have to relive it with words. Your body is wanting to heal you. And if you just tap in with a compassionate person there, your body's like, oh, I can breathe. Okay, I can release that. So I like to think of it as actually, I read this today. It's imagine there are these roadblocks and you're just lifting one roadblock after another so that you can keep moving through. And it's, about the fluid, that's super accurate. You're right. And I would just say that it helps create balance within that system of your body. For example, you could be holding a place on the head and have a pain in your knee release completely. It doesn't always happen that dramatically, but our body holds memories in all these different places. And it's pretty incredible. Basically, what I do when I'm feeling it is I can feel, maybe, I guess audience can't see this, but let's say I feel on the right side of the head, this movement, but I don't feel it so much on the left side of the head. And you just sit there patiently and hold, and things start to balance out, to put it simply.
So interesting.
And it's pretty fascinating. And go ahead.
Well, that's something that they would need to be in person for, obviously.
Yeah, so that's an in-person thing. I do that a little bit of some energy work with certain clients, once we kind of know each other, but I love to do it in person. Sorry, online clients, I've done a little bit of that energetically. You can do it, but again, I prefer that in person. And then online, I mentor, speaking of network marketing, I mentor other people that want to start a wellness business. That's one facet of what I do. I also that can include acupuncturists, that can include people that already have a wellness business because it's complementary. It's what I'm doing. And that's all on my website as well.
What it is? I'm fine if you
do.
Yeah,
for sure. So I sell, I sell fancy water machines. Yeah. So they're ionizing machines. They are incredible. It's a one-time purchase for life. And basically you get distributor rights. And it's a pretty incredible model because you don't lose your rank ever. So one of the attractions for me was that I can sell a machine and I can just keep building all my passions while having this amazing water in my house, while working on my health. And I don't have to worry if I don't sell another machine. I can sell a bunch. I can be like, there are people that are crazy successful very fast, but you'll never lose your rank. And in network marketing, that's kind of hard to find. And it's high ticket versus low ticket. I think both are incredible. I've also done low ticket network marketing. It's just, you got to find a product. If you're out there looking for a network marketing company, you've got to find a product you're passionate about that you can stand by. And
this is one I've been meaning to buy because my parents have one and it's incredible for like cleaning veggies. So you know who to call, girl. I know. I keep thinking about it. I need to convince my husband because he's like, stop spending money. Yeah.
And I mean, this is something that, of course, like this is high ticket versus low ticket. So, but I have to say it's given me so much confidence because you just don't get afraid to drop a number. And that helps me as an artist. It's helped me very much as an artist lift my prices in painting.
Yeah. Tell us about your art too. And then you were kind enough also to create a code that people can use for a discount for everything. On sessions and art, all of it. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the art too. And then the code that people can use.
Perfect. So I'll just say the final bit about working with me online is that I do coaching. So coaching can look like one face reading session. It can look like a package that we set up for you, or it can look like a more full involved Chinese medicine. I call it Chinese medicine informed because that's my background. And I'm not actually doing Chinese medicine. I'm just informed by it. And I work with flower essences. I have a client that's going to be doing more of a business package because I can work with integrating health and all these things into that. And so there's longer packages, or if you just want to get a taster, you can book a face reading. Lastly, art is my true passion from age one. So I will always be painting, except for my recent post where I said I haven't painted since August, and this is December now, and it's the longest streak I've probably ever taken.
But you're going to talk more about
that. We'll get into that
on the mini episode.
But so for art,
honoring the season you're in, which I think is so key.
That's a big one. So, but what I do sell is currently I have little paintings and tote bags, and I love that. I do have them available on my website right now.
I have one of the totes, by the way, and it is like, I love it. It's good. And my daughter calls it her purse and walks around the house with it. And I have to be like, no, that's mine.
She's
but
so
it's
cute.
Beautiful. And I just ordered a mini painting too, and I can't wait.
You did, and that's being sent to you today or tomorrow. Yay. And then the other thing that is probably my big passion is doing personalized commissions for people. And so these tend to be on a larger scale. And I paint abstractly. You can check it out on my website. I love painting big. I love painting like mural size, but these are, house size paintings that will make a big statement in your house, and it's personalized with letters, numbers. They can be subtle. That is something that you can set up a meeting with me if you're interested. I've done them kind of all over the country, and it's very meaningful because it's this co-creative process that I think kind of takes on a spiritual energy too. People have said, like, when those pieces are in their house, that different parts of their lives have changed because it's kind of taps into that feng shui thing.
And also the energy with which you're creating it, and you're painting it in this like high vibe place out in, the high desert too.
It's a big deal. It infuses for sure, like living out here, I would say, into the work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I do have an upcoming show in LA. I'm at the LA Art Show again. And so if you're in LA, you could go. I actually won't be there this year, but you can go and see my work. So I'm going to have a very big painting.
What are the dates of that?
It's a great question.
I think we'll find out.
January 20th. Yeah. Yeah. And I, like I said, unfortunately, I won't be there this time, but usually I'm there. And yeah, so that's how that goes. And the code that I have created is just simply multi-passionate. So you can apply that to any of my small paintings when you're on my art website or on my kind of integrative website that can go for any in-person session or online session.
Perfect. I love it. Well, this was wonderful. I'm going to include everything in the show notes on where people can connect with you, whether you're interested in art, amazing water machines and the business side of that, or just the water itself, the healing. Like there's just so many ways that people can interact with and learn from you. I'll link your social too, so that people can follow along. But yeah, this was wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on, and everyone be sure to come back tomorrow for the mini episode, a business tip on honoring the season that you're in.
Thank you.
This episode was brought to you by Thea Collective, the learning community I founded for entrepreneurs. Text BIZ, that's BIZ, to 949-577-8709 or head to thea-collective.com. That's THEIA-collective.com to learn more. Thanks for listening to the show. If you enjoyed today's episode, please help me get the word out about the corporate dropout by screenshotting and sharing this on social. I would appreciate it so much if you would subscribe and leave a 5-star rating and review as well. And I do this show for you, and I want to hear from you. So tell me, what is it that you want more of? Text me at 949-541-0951 or slide into the DMs at Corporate Dropout Official or Alicia Citro with 2 underscores. Until next time.